Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some fascinating storylines coming out for USC during fall camp. And I think most notably this morning, Lincoln Riley coming up in front of the media and rather publicly and clearly and kind of calling out Bear Alexander to be more consistent for this USC defense in the 2024 season. Now, you can find the direct quotes all over Twitter, but essentially, if you guys missed it, Lincoln Riley gets up there and says, hey, Bear Alexander, we all know you can watch the film and say that he has that game-changing ability to really just take over football games from the inside of the defensive line, and we saw the flashes of it. In 2023, you could make a 6-minute long highlight tape of Bear Alexander really just imposing his will on opposing offensive linemen and disrupting games to a significant extent. That being said, you could also make a 6-minute highlight film of Bear Alexander being extremely inconsistent with three different things. One is effort level, which I think we certainly in the 2023 season, in fairness, Bear Alexander had to play a lot of football, a lot of snaps on the defensive line because of that lack of depth. But I think more importantly, gap responsibility and how to take on blocks. And that's a little bit difficult to talk about. So we're going to get into the film and talk about, some of the things we saw from Bear Alexander that were rather inconsistent in his play in 2023. Really excited to get into this one. Now, before we do, I would love to hear from you guys. It's no secret I love talking USC football, but I think I love talking about it most because I get to hear a lot from you guys in the comments section. Not only do you guys show a ton of love and support, all the fight-ons in the comments section, that stuff means the world. But I think more importantly, a ton of insight from y'all in the comments section. Would love to hear how you guys are kind of feeling about Bear Alexander heading into 2024, how you feel about Lincoln Riley kind of ratherly publicly calling out Bear Alexander. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. To the USC fans, y'all know it. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it means the absolute world. Now, without further ado, let's get into two different things. One, what does he mean by Bear Alexander being rather inconsistent? Now, I think you have to just dive into the film. And one of the things to talk about is Bear Alexander played pretty significant reps at that 0-1, essentially that nose tackle position where he's head up on the center, often dealing with double teams, not often in that position where he was getting asked to be an extreme disruptor on the defensive line. A lot of times when Bear Alexander was lined up at that nose tackle position, so to speak, you're asked to eat up double teams and let your linebackers kind of come downhill. You take a look at this rep, 1st and 10 against the Washington Huskies. This, at least in my opinion, is what Lincoln Riley meant about Bear Alexander being a little bit inconsistent, not only with the effort, but also kind of what he's being asked to do within this scheme where you're kind of playing a 3-down line set. You're going to ask Bear Alexander, who's head up on the center right now, to eat up this double team on a 1st and 10 play, which is normally a running down, so to speak. He has that responsibility. The problem that we saw with Bear Alexander oftentimes when he was playing that 0 or 1, that nose tackle position, he was trying to make too many plays. When your responsibility here is to keep your linebackers clean, eat up that double team that's going to be in front of you. And you see it right here where Bear Alexander is trying to get into the backfield at that 0-1, gets kind of worked off the line of scrimmage because he's trying to shoot some gaps. And look what you have here. You have this left guard easily working up to the linebacker. You have guys pulling around. Damani Jackson, just pathetic effort in run defense. But essentially what you see with Bear Alexander is he's not doing his job. I mean, one, the effort level is not great. We all know Bear Alexander should not be kind of getting manhandled 3 to 4 yards into that defensive backfield. So the effort certainly isn't there. But more importantly, the responsibility that he had during this play has very much failed. You see multiple offensive linemen get into the second level, getting hats on linebackers. And what happens is, 6-yard gain on 1st and 10. I mean, that's losing football if you're USC. Now, that's what Lincoln Riley meant when he's calling out Bear Alexander. There are plays all over the film where you see Bear Alexander, whether it's not taking on the block the right way, whether it's not doing his responsibility, whether it's not playing with high effort. I think the second question is, all right, how do we get Bear Alexander in more positions where he can really wreck games? And we've gone through plenty of Bear Alexander film where we see him taking over football games. I think the biggest storyline is the defensive alignment. You go back to the 2023 season at either the 0 or 1 tech, essentially that nose tackle position. Bear Alexander played almost well over a third of his snaps from that position. That's your best interior defensive lineman essentially playing a role position on the inside of the defensive line, not really asking him to go and take over games. That's not how you want to get Bear Alexander involved. And I think this is the conversation why a guy like Kobe Pepe or someone like true freshman Carlin Jones suddenly becomes so important to this USC defense, where if you can get reliable snaps from Kobe Pepe at that nose tackle position, give Bear Alexander that more ability to play that three tech, operate in a little bit more space, get some better matchups, be put in positions where he can go wreck games and kind of take over games. That's how you kind of fix, I think, some of those inconsistencies we saw with Bear Alexander, where his natural intuition is, I got to go take over a game, get some penetration, and blow up some plays. That's not your job, and that's really hard to do when you're playing that nose tackle position. So if you get reps from Kobe Pepe, who's going to do that job, right? Kobe Pepe is a guy that he's not going to wreck games like Bear Alexander, but he can play with low pads, eat up double teams, let his linebackers come free. And now if he can do that, we can put Bear Alexander in some more beneficial spots to go wreck some games and get involved in the pass rush and get behind the line of scrimmage. I think that's one of the most important conversations to have with this USC defense, where, hey, we know Dan Lynn is going to continue to put players in their best spots to be successful. Dan Lynn, that's why they went out and got Isaiah Rakes. And Isaiah Rakes, unfortunately, not going to play with this USC program. That's why they got Isaiah Rakes, to play that role and let Bear Alexander play a little bit more at that three tech position. You don't have Isaiah Rakes. You don't have an obvious contributor at that nose tackle spot. Now, if Kobe Pepe and Carlin Jones can play that spot well, where they're not necessarily getting asked to go and get a ton of tackles for loss and ton of sacks, but more importantly, do their job and let Bear Alexander be put in more spots to be a little bit more successful and more consistent in 2024. That is the real storyline for this USC team on the defensive side of the football. I'm going to be really intrigued week one against LSU to kind of see where Bear Alexander is getting put on that defensive line. Hey, look, you're going to have to play the nose sometimes if you're Bear. You got to do your job. But when you get put in those three tech positions, you have more opportunity to be a little bit more of a difference maker on the defensive side of the football. I was fascinated with some of those comments by Lincoln Riley, and I think both things can be true. With one, I don't think Bear Alexander was getting used in the best possible way in 2023, but at the end of the day, he's got to be more consistent in 2024. And look, this kid, as much of a big name as he is in the land of college football, he's only going into his third year within this USC program, within this college football, with his college football career, I should say. And so there's reason to believe he gets a little bit more consistent in that 2024 season. Really, really fascinating player. I think a fascinating storyline. Again, would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.